Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World. My name is Anna Kalczyńska. EU leaders have concluded a virtual European Council meeting following yesterday's summit with Donald Trump at the White House. As much as the US president wants peace and an end to the devastating war in Ukraine, for the leaders of Ukraine and Europe, Trump's determination could spell bad news. Concerns about concessions Trump could make to Russia in its expansionist Kremlin policy and a divided alliance are the greatest fear of European leaders, and not only with regard to Ukraine. So how can Europe protect itself at the crucial point in peace negotiations? Joining me to discuss this is Bartosz Wieliński, Deputy Editor-in-Chief at the Polish daily Gazeta Wyborcza. Good evening, and thank you for joining us here on TVP World.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Donald Trump talks of territorial concessions. Volodymyr Zelensky says territorial concessions are absolutely impossible. Trump wants peace, but the Europeans want security. Does that strike you as an attempt to square the circle? Is there room to a potential compromise at all?
Well, at the end, there will be some concessions. I mean, in the best scenario, the only option that is possible now, well, right now, is to freeze the conflict along the front line. So it would mean that Crimea remains with Russia, that occupied parts of Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, so Donbas, remains also with Russia, and parts of Zaporozhye and then Kherson regions also are being occupied by Russia. The question is if Ukraine will be forced to make any additional concessions in terms of its territory. It is hard to see what will happen next. For the Ukrainians, this is certainly a no-go situation. They wouldn't accept. It will be a very hard bargain for them. But of course, the maximal option or maximal demand of Russia is to get all the force for oblasts together and acquire this land. But I don't see where they can't conquer it. They were unable. They were fighting, for almost 4 years, and then didn't conquer even the entire Donbas, which isn't that big and vast region. So probably the only concession Zelensky will be forced to make is to accept the front line as a demarcation line between Russia and Ukraine, and maybe some provisions that the status of those territories will be determined later in some peace treaty, which will probably never be signed. This will be a similar situation to that what we observe between Korea and North Korea, South Korea and North Korea. Well, there's a still war on. Technically, they never signed a peace treaty. The war has been lasting for more than 50 years, and there is some stability there. But technically, this is war. This is only ceasefire in effect.
So let me quote Zelensky, who said about Donbas: "If today we leave Donbas from our fortifications, from our terrain, from the heights that we control, we will clearly open a bridgehead for preparing a new offensive by the Russians." And the Institute of Study of War agrees. A peace deal on those terms could give Moscow a much more advantageous launching point for a future offensive. So my question is, why does the US administration seem to be disregarding this argument? It's a very valuable and priceless terrain.
Yeah, well, maybe they're just ignorant. Let me say that's stupid because the people sent. Let me start with that. The rise of Donald Trump, the start of his administration, meant very very brutal change in the structure of American intelligence community, diplomacy, foreign relations, security expertise, and so on and so on. They fired a lot of people with knowledge, with experience. They hired people without those important traits and made them prepare, background information for such a deal. So if you don't have experts they have that experts that used to be there in the Ukraine, they used to know that country they were talking about. Well, you can have counsel, you can have good advice, you can prepare negotiations with Russia. So I suppose Steve Witkoff has a little knowledge on that what Donbas is, and that's a tragedy that this man traveled to Moscow so many times, spoke to Putin without his own interpreter. He used KGB person, Russian interpreter. Well, I'm sure that there's no doubt that person was agent of secret services, and that person tried to forge any peace solution for Ukraine, calling it that a just peace. Well, that entire discussion about land swap. We didn't get into details. We have never gone that far to know all the details, but it looked like that Americans proposed that the Russians would retreat from those small parts of Kharkov and Sumy oblasts, and in exchange they wanted entire Donbas. That's what you were talking about. Giving Donbas to Russia, entire Donbas to Russia, would mean the same thing that sealed the fate of Czechoslovakia in 1938. The Germans, got Sudetenland, which was heavily fortified, part of Czechoslovak territory with a Czechoslovak version of Maginot Line, so a lot of fortification to defend the country against Germans. And without those installations, without those fortifications, Czechoslovakia was unable to defend itself against Germany. And 4 months after signing a Munich agreement, Czechoslovakia became has been invaded by Germans. Germans simply annexed Czechoslovakia, which was the country was defenseless. So that would be the same fate for Ukraine in Donbas if this part would be taken over. And the fact that Americans didn't recognize this threat and this similarity is a bad sign regarding their knowledge and their expertise.
Exactly. So bearing exactly what you've mentioned, the history in mind, and having all the intelligence, the Europeans are simply afraid that Trump could press Ukraine to hand over its key defensive lines in eastern Donbas region. But Donald Trump promised security guarantees. He promised them to the Ukrainians and also to the Europeans. Let me quote him. When it comes to security, there is going to be a lot of help. They are at first line of defense because they're there, but we will help them out. Now, we don't know what exactly Trump means by those security, but in other words, there is land for guarantees deal, sort of. Is there a model of security guarantees that would be acceptable to the Ukrainians, to the Europeans, and that could successfully deter Russia?
I'd say that the Korean model is that solution, but that requires American presence on the ground. So sending the US troops and placing them along the demarcation line in order to protect the peace and stability in the region. And this is not the solution Donald Trump wants to have. He was rejecting the possibility of sending any soldiers to Ukraine. Now he's suggesting he might send some Air Force assets to control the skies over the Ukraine. And probably those assets would be based in Poland, in Romania. That's the option. It is a progress. That must have been said that this is a progress for Donald Trump, but this is not enough. In order to provide peace and to provide the stability, sending troops, European troops, NATO troops on the ground is the essential condition. Without Europeans and American troops, Russia won't be deterred from attacking Ukraine. So we need a lot of soldiers because Ukraine is a huge land. The border between Ukraine and Russia is 2 times longer than the border between Eastern and Western Germany. And NATO had almost 1 million soldiers in the Cold War stationed in Germany. So we didn't have 2 million soldiers. The number that is now in the game, the number, the countries that countries would like to contribute approximately 30 or 40,000 soldiers. This is this is nothing regarding the size of Ukraine. So we need a huge contributions. And till now, only United Kingdom and France is ready and is dedicated to do something about it.
Right, let's talk those boots on the ground. Let's talk about it. So who's ready to send those boots to Ukraine?
The French. The French, because, they still feel that they're empire. And, they lost influence in Africa, and then they need to regain some substitutes of military strength, showing the presence in Ukraine. There will be a message to the world: we are still in game as an empire, as an important nation. The Brits, of course, for the same reasons. And now it started to getting interesting yesterday because there's some signals from Germany that Friedrich Merz will also be ready to send some troops. But the Germans, Finland? They are not used.
Young and powerful President Alexander Stubb, quoted by Trump.
No way. The Finns said that they have their own problems with Russia. They have a long border, 800 kilometers, if I recall correctly. Border with Russia. They need troops to protect themselves from any possible incursion. And it used to be a huge incursion, Russian incursion against Finland in 40s. So they fear there's some reason to be afraid of Russia if you are Finn. So forget Finland. Maybe some countries from Southern Europe could contribute some logistical troops, some support troops. But in terms of combat units, maybe Germans will send somebody, but they are also very reluctant in terms of
Polish position? Could it change at some
force.
point in this respect?
This is a question to our new president, but I doubt it. I doubt it that it has been an issue in the electoral campaign, and there is a consensus in Polish political scene that no sending of troops to Ukraine is accepted. So there's a strict denial of such a position. Both Donald Tusk, Radosław Sikorski, so the foreign minister, and the president, Karol Nawrocki, they refuse to participate military. The only option is logistical support from Poland. So, the usage of the airbase in Rzeszów-Jasionka, maintaining of communication routes, supply routes, etc., but not direct involvement with troops that could fight against Russia. That's out of the question.
In the meantime, we are waiting for a trilateral meeting between Donald Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky, and Putin to happen within 2 weeks. We still don't know where this meeting could take place, perhaps somewhere in Europe. It was just rejected that such a meeting could take place in Moscow, as it was proposed by the Russians. So looking ahead of what the future brings, thank you so much, Bartosz Wieliński, Deputy Editor-in-Chief, Gazeta Wyborcza.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned to TVP World for more.